So questions from the transfer of property start from the 26th question. This question requires that आप सारे options carefully पढ़ें. I am sure implied surrender of lease सुनते ही section 111 TPA जरूर याद आया होगा आपको, even if you could not remember exactly section 111F. As you can see, option A fits the description exactly जो आपको mark करना था. Now for a quick recap, we also have all the methods of determination of a lease for you over here. Existing lease के subsistence में नई lease accept करना would be an implied surrender. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Question 27 में you had to find out कि third persons who have a right for maintenance, that is, जिनका सब्जेक्ट प्रॉपर्टी में मेंटेनेंस का कोई अधिकार है, वो कैसे ट्रांसफरीज के अगेंस्ट अपना राइट नहीं एनफोर्स कर सकते. यू सी वेरी क्लियरली एज पर सेक्शन 39, इफ द ट्रांसफरी इज गेटिंग दिस प्रॉपर्टी अपॉन पेइंग कंसिडरेशन एंड उसे कोई नॉलेज नहीं है, ही हैज नो नोटिस ऑफ दिस थर्ड पार्टी राइट, देन ऑफ कोर्स ही इज प्रोटेक्टेड. यू हैड टू मार्क ऑप्शन बी ओवर हियर. सो इस क्वेश्चन पेपर के 28th बॉल में आके वी फेस द बिगेस्ट बाउंसर. पूछना क्या चाहते हैं एग्जामिनर? एनीवेज, वी नो लीजेस, दे आर डिफाइंड अंडर सेक्शन 105 ऑफ द ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी एक्ट. नाउ जब हम 107 में आते हैं, सो लेट अस आल्सो कंसिडर द ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल ओवर हियर. सो ऑप्शन ए वाज लीज फ्रॉम ईयर टू ईयर, ऑप्शन बी वाज टर्म ऑफ 1 year लीज, एंड ऑप्शन सी वाज लीज जिसमें हमें ईयरली रेंट मिले. So now as per 107, all of these leases can only be made by a registered instrument. So in any case, we had to mark option D. I am sure you have marked option D. Now just for value addition for your mains, आप section 17(1)D of Registration Act भी consider कर लेंगे. So section 10 Transfer of Property Act से आपको पता लगता है that conditions restraining absolute alienation by transferee is void. The exception in such cases is of leases to secure the interest of the lessor or persons claiming under him. Clearly we can converge at once कि आपको यहाँ पर A mark करना था. You see, what kind of a transfer will it be अगर आपके purchasers aren't able to sell ahead of them? But yes, as a lessor, you can restrain your lessee from subletting the property. Now the 30th question is from types of mortgages. Now here we have a mortgage in which there is no delivery of possession of the mortgage property. Mortgager is binding himself personally to pay the money, and in failure of such payment the mortgagee shall have the right to sell off the mortgage property and appropriate these proceeds towards the amount. So ये एक simple mortgage का case है. You had to mark option A. Now for your convenience and added understanding, we have tried to explain the different kinds of mortgages over here, which you may also treat as a quick revision. Divert all your focus to question number 31, which is again a negative question. Look at the note over here. We have to identify as to which of these conditions is not required for creation of an interest in favor of an unborn child. Now section 5 gives out the general principle that transfer can only be between living persons. So then how do you transfer for the benefit of unborn children? So section 13 is the answer here, and we need to create a prior interest, which is option A. We need to create this interest before transferring the remaining interest, and the whole of the remaining interest of the transferor should be given to the unborn child. Now therefore we have eliminated A, B and D. C here is the correct answer, friends. Moving further ahead, question number 32. Now question number 32 is another direct and interesting one. So an easement is a bundle of rights associated with your enjoyment of your property and your right to prevent others from using it. You see, easements cannot be transferred apart from the dominant heritage, and this is also envisaged in section 8, which talks about that property would pass with a bunch of interests which are legal incidents. Now I am sure you also may be knowing about rights which resemble easements but are actually transferable. I also hope you can tell each of them apart, and if you have any confusions, किसी भी confusion के लिए, you can always reach out to Adsorb Law. So with the 33rd question, we are now transcending into the area where the realm of the contract law begins. Yes, so this is with regard to mistake of fact. Now look at our hits. We have directly covered this in our question bank, and for a fun example, I think let us redefine bare act for you, right? Mistake of fact, of course. So such cases where you have a mistake of fact, there is no consensus ad idem, and naturally such agreement would be void. आपको यहाँ पर option D mark कर देना था फटाफट. Now moving further ahead, we have another question from void and voidable. So ये second question हो गया हमारा void and voidable से. This is concerning undue influence. Now a bunch of references over here. Section 14 will tell you about free consent, and free consent does not include undue influence. Section 16 will go ahead and define undue influence for you, and section 19A will tell you that such contracts arising out of undue influence are voidable. Now here you have a guru, of course, who is somebody who is having some pressure over his chela. Now he is inducing him to give the whole of his property, right? So such a contract is voidable at the option of the chela. So therefore you had to mark over here option B. Moving further ahead. So now finders keepers, right? Only two provisions in the Contract Act, 168 and 169. This is a direct hit from 169 and also a direct hit from our question bank. You see, with so many hits, so many direct hits at the MPCJ questions, I think you should be with us. Now, while we have covered the bunch of requirements that section 169 imposes for there being a sale by a finder, here we are only concerned with the value, and well, a finder can do it if the value of the founded good is 2/3 of the value which is required to find that good. Now, wouldn't you say that question number 36 was rather a simple one? Another direct one, this being from section 150, more specifically the second illustration. Here, B is in fact responsible to A for the injury. Option B lagana tha aapko. You can see we have directly covered this in our question bank as well. Now, as per section 150, there is a duty upon the bailer to disclose the faults in the goods so bailed. Coming to question number 37, we find that this is the third question from void and voidable, right? So now every agreement in restraint of marriage of a person other than a minor is definitely void. You had to mark option C, and this is another direct question from section 26 of the Indian Contract Act. That apart, you can very well see that we had this covered really well in our question banks as well. Going ahead, question number 38 is talking about anticipatory breach. This is envisaged under section 39 of the Contract Act. Now here the promisee need not perform his part of the contract but was entitled to claim damages without waiting till the date of performance. Now how is this happening? Throughout the Contract Act, when you're studying breach has to be a significant event. Now in cases of a breach, the party is supposed to assert its right under the contract or the law, and remaining silent over it will be acceptance of the breach. I don't think there are any doubts regarding the 39th question. Here you have a contract of indemnity. The ingredients are given. There is a promise to save another from loss caused to him by conduct of the promiser or by another person. You simply had to mark option C over here. Coming to question number 40. Now question number 40 is straight away from section 65. Now here we are seeing an impossibility having occurred on account of A's hands being chopped off in an accident. Thereupon the contract has become void. However, since benefits have passed under the contract to A, he has to return the same as per section 65. So here you had to mark option C. So question number 41 would want you to identify the remedy when the intention of the contract is not expressed due to fraud played by the parties. Now a very specific question. The correct answer here was rectification of instrument, which is option C. Now it was a specific question as it was directly from section 26 of the Specific Relief Act, which provides for the following situations in which rectification of instruments can be sought. Now even if you did not know this, let us proceed using elimination over here. So the contract is not expressing its real intention. I am sure you would not go for specific performance. You would not even go for declaration or perpetual injunction. So even by simple elimination, you could have easily arrived at the correct option over here. While you are considering this, you can also consider Section 18 and 26 of the Specific Relief Act and the difference between, you will find that Section 26 is far more broader than Section 18. Question number 42 would want you to remember what has been introduced by the 2018 amendment. Yes, so a party who has taken substituted performance cannot now opt for specific performance, and B was the correct option over here. Now, after the 2018 amendment, the discretion with the court to decree specific performance has been taken away. Parties can go for taking substituted performance, and when they do so, they cannot then go for specific performance. Very interestingly, Section 30 of the Specific Relief Act is taken up in question number 43. Now, what is the remedy available in cases of rescission? Now, let me quickly take you over here. So, rescission of a contract is cancelling of contract, and imagine that parties are now in a position as if there was no contract ever. Taking into account a development agreement, you had a house on your land which was demolished for a larger project, and then the contract gets rescinded by the court. What would be the available remedy, right? So first would be to restore any benefit that the builder may have received. Now, since your building cannot be brought back to life again, the builder will have to make reasonable compensation. So you see, by this A and B are covered, and therefore C is the correct option over here. Question number 44 is a direct question from Section 8 of the Specific Relief Act, and A, while going abroad, has left his furniture under care of his friend B. Essentially, as you can see, let us lay it down for you over here. He has left his furniture under the care. So the friend is a trustee. It has been left in trust. Now this person, his friend B, he's pledging the furniture to C. So what is the available remedy? Now, very simply, from Section 8 of the Specific Relief Act itself, C may be compelled specifically to deliver the furniture to A, and we had to mark option A over here. I don't think there could have been a more direct question, a very specific question, again relating to the 2018 Specific Relief Amendment. Now, by this amendment, several categories have been added in the schedule. We are here concerned with the fifth category, which is social and commercial infrastructure. You see, tourism now includes 3-star or higher hotels, which will also include 5-star hotels, but it's outside the cities, not within the cities. Ropeways are also included. Now, therefore, that excludes option number C, which is 5-star hotel located within the city, and that is the correct option जो कि आपको mark करना था. Please don't burst into a laughter if I call question number 46 a very demanding one. You see, it demands that you specifically and categorically know Section 41 of the Specific Relief Act. आपको पता होगा कि injunction नहीं दिया जा सकता है to prevent the breach of a contract, the performance of which cannot be specifically enforced. Injunction can also not be granted on a ground of nuisance, an act of which is not reasonably clear that it will be nuisance. An injunction can again not be granted where there is a continuing breach in which the plaintiff has acquiesced. So therefore, यहाँ पर you had to mark option D very clearly. Coming to question number 47, very interesting. You see, negotiations for settlement taking place between a claimant and a person against whom a claim is made. Can this be used to bar the defendant from using the statute of limitation? Of course not. Now, negotiations in commercial transactions or even otherwise is something when the parties are putting across all aggressive modes of pursuing a litigation and are entering into negotiations for effecting a settlement. Now, this period, of course, can be excluded for the purpose of computation of limitation. Therefore, यहाँ पर आपको option number B mark करना था that it does not debar the defendant from pleading a statute of limitation, right? Even though the negotiations have brought delay, in fact. Going ahead. Now, question number 48. Yes. Under Section 21, a suit is deemed to have been instituted in case of a new plaintiff impleaded or added. Now, when is the question? So, even if you go by, again, elimination, you can easily rule out B and C and D. And, well, to know A, you had to know Section 21. So, here A was the correct answer. Traversing through the question paper, now we again land another question from Section 14 of the Limitation Act, also to say from the Limitation Act itself. Now, this jurisdiction for exemption is given to which court? Exclusively. So, it is the court of first instance over here. Now, we have for you a depiction over here as to which all courts have this jurisdiction to grant the exemption under Section 14. So in this really short spell, we see Section 14 taking 2 wickets. as this is the second question, question number 50 from section 14 of the Limitation Act. Now here, the plaintiff has filed the suit where defendant has taken the objection of non-impleadment of a necessary party. The suit proceeds with such defect. The plaintiff continues with it. It is finally decree, and at the first appellate stage, he withdraws this suit with the liberty to file afresh. Now whether in such a case he will be afforded the benefit of section 14 of the Limitation Act. Now the correct answer here is that this period is not liable to be excluded, as the plaintiff cannot be said to be prosecuting the earlier suit with due diligence. Now due diligence is the key word over here, which you must remember. However, there was this one option to confuse you, that liberty was taken to withdraw the suit. Food for thought. Imagine that he took this liberty at the suit stage itself. What would have then happened? Would he be allowed to take the benefit of section 14? Think about it. Now, at the end of this segment of our discussion, I am sure you have been paying attention and have understood the importance of being up to date with the latest and recent amendments of the statutes that are generally asked in such examinations. If you haven't, take good care about it.